He saw them before he saw her. 3 little girls, identical, dark curls bouncing as they laughed. And then, their eyes. His eyes. The eyes of a man who'd never lost control, staring back at him from faces he'd never known existed. She stood there, silent, unbothered, like she'd been waiting 4 years for this exact moment. He'd divorced her without explanation, without mercy. She never told him she was pregnant. Now, the most powerful man in the city is about to discover that some debts can't be paid in blood or money, only in truth. And the truth, it has his face. Kang Minjai didn't do shopping malls. He controlled territories, not consumer spaces. His world was boardrooms veiled in cigar smoke, warehouses where shipments arrived under moonlight, penthouses with bulletproof glass overlooking cities that bent to his will. At 31, he was untouchable, unreachable. A ghost wrapped in a 3-piece suit and the kind of silence that made grown men confess sins they hadn't committed yet. But his sister had insisted. "Just this once, Appa," she'd said over the phone, her voice threading through layers of static and distance. "I need you to pick up a gift. I'm stuck in Seoul. You're the only one I trust." So here he was, surrounded by artificial light and the dull hum of 100 conversations he didn't care about. Bodyguards flanked him, 2 ahead, 2 behind, dressed like civilians but moving like soldiers. People noticed. They always did. Eyes flickered toward him, then away. Quickly, instinctively. He walked with purpose toward the luxury boutique on the 3rd floor, his mind already cataloging exit routes, blind spots, potential threats, old habits. Survival wired into muscle memory. And then he heard it. Laughter. Not just any laughter, the kind that shatters silence like glass against marble. Pure. Unfiltered. The sound of joy that didn't know fear yet. His feet stopped. He didn't choose to stop. His body simply refused to move forward. 3 little girls stood near the fountain in the center court, no more than 3 years old, wearing matching yellow sundresses that looked like bottled sunlight. They were identical. Same height, same curls that caught the light in soft, dark waves, same rich brown skin that seemed to glow under the mall's fluorescent wash. But it was their eyes that made the world tilt. Sharp, focused, deep brown with flecks of amber that turned gold in certain light. His eyes. The same eyes that had stared back at him from mirrors in safe houses, prison cells, hospital beds. The eyes his father had passed to him before a bullet ended a dynasty. The eyes that haunted his enemies in their last moments. Those eyes were looking at a stuffed giraffe now, arguing in soft, animated voices about whose turn it was to hold it. Minjai's chest tightened. His breath caught somewhere between his lungs and his throat. Then he saw her. Standing 5 feet away, her back to him, dressed in a simple white blouse and dark jeans that somehow looked more elegant than anything in the boutique windows. Her hair was different, longer now, pulled into a low ponytail that swayed gently as she bent down to adjust one of the girl's ribbons. Amara, his ex-wife. 4 years. It had been 4 years since he'd signed the papers his lawyer placed in front of him without explanation. 4 years since he'd walked out of their penthouse and never looked back. 4 years since he'd last heard her voice. Not angry, not pleading, just asking one question he never answered. Why? She straightened up, and even from behind, he could see the quiet strength in her posture. The way she carried herself like a woman who'd learned to walk through storms and came out believing in sunshine. One of the bodyguards shifted beside him. "Sir?" Minjai didn't respond. Couldn't. Because one of the little girls, the one holding the giraffe, turned her head and looked directly at him. For 3 heartbeats, they stared at each other. A man who'd ended lives without flinching, and a child who didn't know what fear tasted like. She tilted her head, studying him the way he used to study opponents across poker tables. Then she smiled, small, curious, innocent. And something inside him, Something he'd thought died the day he buried his father, cracked wide open. "Mommy," the girl said, tugging on Amara's hand. "That man is looking at us." Amara turned. The world stopped. Not metaphorically, not poetically. It actually stopped. The noise, the movement, the passage of time itself ground to a halt the moment her eyes met his. She didn't gasp, didn't stumble, didn't react the way people usually did when they saw Kang Min-jae after long absences, with fear, or reverence, or carefully calculated neutrality. She just looked at him. And in that look, he saw everything. 4 years of silence. 4 years of questions she stopped asking. 4 years of a life he knew nothing about, written in the small lines near her eyes that hadn't been there before. 4 years of raising 3 daughters alone. His daughters. The word hit him like a fist to the sternum. His daughters. "Girls," Amara said quietly, her voice steady in a way that made his own breath unsteady. "Stay close." The other two turned then, and Min-jae saw it again. His face reflected in miniature, in triplicate, in the children who shouldn't exist because he'd walked away before he could destroy them the way he destroyed everything he touched. But they did exist, and they were looking at him like he was just another stranger in a crowded mall. One of the bodyguards stepped forward. "Sir, we should leave," Min-jae said. His voice came out rougher than intended. "All of you, wait by the car." "Sir, now." They hesitated, then obeyed, because no one questioned Kang Min-jae twice. Amara watched them go, then turned her attention back to him. Her expression was unreadable, not cold, not warm, just present. Like she'd learned how to exist in a space where his presence didn't dictate the temperature anymore. "Kang Min-jae," she said. Not a question, just a statement of fact. Amara. Her name felt foreign on his tongue, like a language he used to speak fluently but had forgotten through disuse. "It's been a long time," she said. 4 years. 3 years and 7 months if we're counting. He almost smiled. Almost. "You always counted." Someone had to. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but loaded. Heavy with the weight of everything unsaid, everything unexplained, everything that had been buried under divorce papers and cold exits. The girls were staring now, sensing the shift in their mother's energy. The one with the giraffe stepped closer to Amara, wrapping small fingers around her mother's hand. Min-jae looked down at her. Really looked. Saw the way her chin lifted slightly, defiant, even at 3. The way her shoulders squared, mimicking her mother's posture. "What are their names?" he asked. Amara's jaw tightened. "Why?" "Because I want to know." "You wanted to know a lot of things 4 years ago. Didn't stop you from leaving." The words weren't bitter, they were just true. And truth, Min-jae had learned, cut deeper than any blade. "I had my reasons," he said. "I'm sure you did." She shifted her weight, and he noticed the small things, the calluses on her hands that hadn't been there before, the faint shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and early mornings. But reasons don't raise children, Min-jae. Reasons don't answer questions when they ask where their father is. Reasons don't... She stopped, took a breath, reset. "Their names are Arya, Zara, and Naomi," she said finally. "Arya has the giraffe. Zara is on the left. Naomi is hiding behind my leg because she doesn't like strangers." Min-jae's gaze dropped to the smallest girl, barely visible, peeking out with wide eyes that mirrored his own. "They're not strangers to me," he said quietly. Amara laughed, soft, incredulous. "You didn't know they existed until 60 seconds ago. I know now." "And what exactly do you plan to do with that knowledge?" Good question. He'd built an empire on knowing what to do, how to respond, when to strike, when to disappear. But standing here, looking at the woman he'd loved enough to leave and the daughters he'd never known existed, every strategy he'd ever learned felt useless. "I don't know," he admitted. It was the most honest thing he'd said in 4 years. Amara studied him for a long moment. Then she crouched down, eye level with the girls. "Say goodbye to the nice man," she told them gently. "We need to finish shopping." "But Mommy," Arya said, still clutching the giraffe. "He has sad eyes." Min-jae felt something crack further. "I know, baby," Amara whispered. "Some people carry sadness. It's not our job to fix it." She stood, gathered the girls with practiced ease, and turned to leave. "Amara." She paused, didn't turn around. "I need to talk to you. You had 4 years to talk. I know. You chose silence. I know. Then live with it." She started walking. The girls followed, little hands in hers, yellow dresses disappearing into the crowd like sunlight fading at dusk. Min-jae stood there, alone in the middle of the mall, surrounded by people who didn't matter, watching the only people who suddenly did walk away. And for the first time since he was 16 years old, standing over his father's grave, swearing to become untouchable, Kang Min-jae felt something he'd forgotten how to name. Regret. Min-jae didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse office on the 42nd floor, city lights bleeding through floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of whiskey untouched on the mahogany desk in front of him. The room was silent except for the low hum of climate control and the distant pulse of traffic far below. His phone sat beside the whiskey, screen dark. No calls. No messages. Just the weight of a number he hadn't dialed in 4 years, saved under a name he'd told himself he'd deleted but never actually could. His head of security, Day Won, had already delivered the report. Efficient. Thorough. No questions asked because Kang Min-jae's people knew better than to question. Amara Cross, age 29. Residence, small apartment complex in Brooklyn Heights. Occupation, freelance graphic designer, works from home. No criminal record, no debts, no romantic entanglements. Triplet daughters, Arya, Zara, Naomi. Born February 14th. Min-jae had stopped reading there. February 14th, 9 months after he'd left, she'd been pregnant. Carrying 3 lives inside her while he signed papers that erased their legal connection. She'd gone through every appointment, every sleepless night, every fear and milestone alone. And she'd never told him. He should have been angry. Part of him wanted to be. But rage required righteousness, and Min-jae had forfeited that the moment he walked out without explanation. The intercom buzzed. "Sir?" Daewon's voice crackled through. "Your sister is online too." Min-jae pressed the button, put her through. A click. Then Ji-yeon's voice, bright and unbothered despite the 13-hour time difference. "Did you get the gift?" Min-jae looked at the empty space on his desk where a wrapped box should have been. "No." "Appa," she sighed. "I sent you to 1 store, literally 1. I got distracted." "By what? You don't get distracted. You're like emotionally unavailable wall man. Nothing distracts you." He almost smiled. Almost. "I saw Amara." Silence. Long enough that Min-jae checked to make sure the line hadn't dropped. "Ji-yoon?" "Amara," she repeated slowly, like testing the weight of a name she hadn't spoken in years. "As in, your ex-wife, Amara." "Yes. The woman you divorced for absolutely no reason and refused to talk about ever again?" "Yes." Wow. He could hear her shifting, probably sitting up in whatever hotel bed she was calling from. "How is she?" "She has children." Another pause, shorter this time. "Oh, 3 of them, girls, identical triplets." "That's nice? I mean, good for her. Moving on, fresh start, all that, they're mine, Ji-yeon." The silence that followed was so absolute, Min-jae could hear his own heartbeat. "Say that again," Ji-yoon said finally, her voice stripped of all its usual lightness. The girls. They're my daughters. Are you sure? I saw them. They have my eyes. Lots of people have brown eyes, Appa. Not like these. He closed his own eyes and the image was still there. 3 small faces, 3 identical gazes, 3 versions of a future he'd tried to prevent by leaving. I'm sure. Ji-eun exhaled slowly. She never told you? No. Why? I don't know. Did you ask? She wouldn't talk to me. Shocking, Ji-eun said dryly. Man abandons wife without explanation. Wife doesn't want to chat 4 years later. Truly mysterious. Min-jae picked up the whiskey, didn't drink it, just held the glass, feeling its weight. I need to fix this. Appa. Ji-eun's voice softened. Some things can't be fixed. Some doors, once you close them, I need to try. Why? Because they're my daughters. They've been your daughters for 3 years, and you didn't know. They had birthdays, first words, first steps, all without you. Why does seeing them suddenly change everything? Because it does. Ji-eun sighed again, but this time it was the sigh of someone who knew her brother well enough to recognize immovable will when she heard it. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Well, figure it out fast. And maybe this time, don't disappear without explaining yourself? She hung up before he could respond. Min-jae set the phone down, stared at it, then opened his contacts and scrolled to the name that had haunted him for 4 years. His thumb hovered over the call button. Then he set the phone down again. Because Ji-eun was right about one thing. Some doors, once closed, couldn't be opened with brute force. They required something he'd spent his entire adult life learning not to show. Vulnerability. Amara didn't sleep well either. She lay in her small bedroom, walls painted soft cream, a window overlooking the street where distant sirens occasionally shattered the quiet, and stared at the ceiling. The girls were asleep in the next room. Arya snoring softly, Zara sprawled like a starfish, Naomi curled into the smallest possible ball. She'd checked on them twice already, even though they were fine, safe, loved. But seeing Min-jae had cracked open something she'd carefully sealed away. She'd known this day would come eventually. You couldn't raise triplets with their father's exact face and expect to hide forever. But she'd hoped for more time, more preparation, more something. Instead, she'd gotten a shopping mall and 60 seconds of eye contact that felt like falling through ice. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She picked it up, expecting a client email or a notification from the girl's preschool portal. Instead, it was a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. She stared at the screen. No name, no context. But she knew. Of course she knew. Because only one person in her life delivered demands disguised as requests with that kind of cold certainty. She typed back, "There's nothing to talk about." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Please. The word sat there on her screen like a foreign object. Kang Min-jae didn't say please. He said do this or handle that or nothing at all. But never please. She should have ignored it. Blocked the number. Gone to sleep and pretended the mall encounter had been a fever dream. Instead, she typed, "How did you get my number? Does it matter?" Yes. Another pause. Then, "I have resources." Of course he did. Min-jae had always had resources. Money, connections, people who owed him favors they'd never finish repaying. That was the world he lived in. A world she'd briefly touched before realizing it would swallow her whole if she stayed. One conversation, he sent. That's all I'm asking. You gave up the right to ask me for anything 4 years ago. I know. Then why are you texting me at midnight? Because I saw them. And I can't unsee them. Amara's chest tightened. She'd known, from the moment Arya pointed him out, from the moment their eyes met across that fountain, that this would change everything. You couldn't show a man like Minjai that he had daughters and expect him to just walk away again, even if walking away was exactly what he was best at. One conversation, he sent again. You pick the time and place. I'll come alone. You don't do alone. For this I will. She sat up, pulling her knees to her chest, phone still glowing in her hand. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to protect the quiet, stable life she'd built from the ruins of their marriage, to keep the girls safe from the man whose world was made of shadows and unspoken threats. But another part of her, smaller, quieter, buried under years of single parenthood and survival, whispered something else. He's their father. Don't they deserve to know? She typed slowly. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Brooklyn Bridge Park, Pier 1. And if you bring anyone, I walk. His response came immediately. I'll be there. Amara set the phone down, stared at it like it might explode. Then she lay back down, closed her eyes, and tried to pretend she wasn't terrified of what tomorrow would bring. Minjai arrived 15 minutes early. The park was crowded. Joggers, tourists, couples walking hand in hand along the waterfront. The Manhattan skyline rose across the East River, glass and steel catching afternoon sunlight like a wall of mirrors. He stood near the railing, hands in the pockets of his black overcoat. No bodyguards, no backup, no contingency plan. Just him. It felt strange, exposed, like standing naked in the middle of a battlefield. He saw her before she saw him. She walked along the promenade, wearing a rust-colored jacket and jeans, her hair loose and moving slightly in the October breeze. No children with her this time. Just Amara, alone, looking like someone who'd learned how to carry the weight of the world without letting it show. She spotted him, stopped. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she closed the distance, each step measured, deliberate. You came alone, she said when she reached him. I said I would. You've said a lot of things. Fair. She leaned against the railing beside him, close enough to talk, but far enough to maintain distance. They both stared out at the water. Why now? She asked quietly. Why, after 4 years of complete silence, do you suddenly care? I saw them. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Amara shook her head, a small, bitter smile tugging at her lips. You're unbelievable. You know that? I've been called worse. I'm sure you have. Silence settled between them, broken only by the distant sound of a ferry horn and the rhythmic lap of water against the pier. I didn't tell you I was pregnant, Amara said finally, because you left. You signed those papers and disappeared like I was a problem you solved. So I solved my own problem. They're not a problem. No, she agreed. They're not. They're the best thing that ever happened to me, but you don't get to know that. You don't get to show up and suddenly want to be part of their lives because you feel guilty. It's not guilt. Then what is it? Minjai turned to face her fully, saw the walls she'd built, higher, stronger than anything he could break through with money or influence. I left because I thought I was protecting you, he said. She laughed. No humor in it. Protecting me from what? From me. From my world. From what I am. And what are you, Minjai? He held her gaze. Someone who destroys everything he touches. Well, congratulations, she said softly. You succeeded. The words hit like a blade between ribs. I'm sorry, he said. And he meant it. Every syllable. Amara looked at him for a long time. Then she turned back to the water. Sorry doesn't change the past. I know. Sorry doesn't erase 4 years. I know. Sorry doesn't make you a father. I know that too. She exhaled slowly. Then what do you want from me? A chance. To do what? To be what I should have been from the beginning. Amara closed her eyes. You have no idea what you're asking. Then tell me. She opened her eyes, and in them, he saw exhaustion, fear, and something else, something that looked dangerously close to hope. "They ask about you sometimes," she said. "Not by name. They don't know your name. But they ask why they don't have a daddy like the other kids at preschool." Min-jae's throat tightened. "What do you tell them?" "I tell them that some families look different, that love doesn't always come in the same shape." "Do they believe you?" "They're 3, Min-jae. They believe everything I say." She paused. "For now. What happens when they stop believing?" "I don't know." Her voice cracked slightly. "I've been trying not to think about it." Min-jae looked down at his hands, hands that had signed contracts, held weapons, built an empire on silence and strategy. Hands that had never held his daughters. "Let me meet them," he said. "Properly. Not as a stranger in a mall." "And then what? You show up for a day, play the doting father, and disappear when things get complicated? Because that's what you do, Min-jae. You run. I won't run." "How do I know that?" "You don't." At least he was honest. Amara turned to face him fully now, arms crossed, defenses locked in place. "If I let you into their lives, and that's a massive if, you don't get to do this halfway. You're either all in, or you stay gone. I won't let you break their hearts the way you broke mine." "I understand. Do you?" She stepped closer, and for the first time, he saw anger flash in her eyes. Real, raw anger. Because being a parent isn't a business deal. It's not something you can delegate or strategize. It's showing up every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. It's putting them first, always, no matter what. Can you do that? Min-jae met her gaze. "I don't know," he said, "but I want to try." Amara stared at him, searching for something, sincerity maybe, or proof that he was still the man who'd walked away without looking back. Whatever she found, it made her shoulders drop slightly. "One meeting," she said finally. "Supervised. At my apartment. And if you scare them, or upset them, or make them feel anything less than safe, you're done. Understood?" "Understood." "And Min-jae?" She held his gaze. "If you hurt them, I will make you regret every decision you've ever made. I don't care who you are or what you're capable of." He believed her. Because the woman standing in front of him wasn't the same woman he'd married. That woman had been softer, more willing to bend. This woman was steel wrapped in grace, and she terrified him in the best possible way. "When?" he asked. "Sunday 10 a.m. I'll text you the address." She started to walk away, then paused. "And Min-jae?" "Yes?" "Don't bring gifts. Don't try to buy their affection. Just be human, if you remember how." Then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd, leaving him alone at the pier with the skyline at his back and the weight of Sunday morning pressing down on his chest. Sunday morning arrived wrapped in cold autumn air and the kind of nervous energy that made Min-jae check his reflection 3 times before leaving the penthouse. He'd chosen simple clothes, dark jeans, a charcoal sweater, leather jacket. No designer logos, no watch that cost more than most people's yearly rent. Just normal. Or as normal as someone like him could manage. Daewon had raised an eyebrow when Min-jae told him he was going alone. "Sir, with all respect." "I said alone." "At least let me drive you." "No." "Then take the tracker. Daewon." Min-jae's voice carried the weight of finality. "I'm visiting my daughters, not negotiating a territory deal." His head of security had nodded slowly, though the concern in his eyes remained. Now, standing outside Amara's building in Brooklyn Heights, Min-jae understood that concern. Because walking into an unsecured location without backup went against every survival instinct he'd honed over 15 years. But this wasn't about survival. This was about something infinitely more dangerous. Trust. He pressed the buzzer. Apartment 4C. Amara's voice crackled through the intercom. Yes? It's me. A pause. Then the door buzzed open. He climbed 4 flights of stairs, no elevator, he noted, and found her waiting in the hallway. Same rust-colored jacket from Friday. Hair pulled back, expression carefully neutral. Rules, she said before he could speak. You follow my lead. If they get uncomfortable, we stop. If they want you to leave, you leave, and absolutely no talk about your work. Understand? Understood. She studied him for another moment, then opened the door. The apartment was small but warm. Cream walls covered with children's artwork, crayon drawings of flowers, stick figure families, abstract swirls of color. A tiny kitchen to the left, living room straight ahead with mismatched furniture that somehow worked together. Toys organized in bins near the window, everything clean, everything loved. Everything that could have been his, if he hadn't been a coward. They're in the living room, Amara said quietly. I told them a friend was coming to visit. A friend. I'm not explaining who you are until I know you're staying. Fair. She led him inside, and there they were. 3 little girls sitting on the carpet, surrounded by coloring books and crayons. They looked up simultaneously when he entered. 3 pairs of identical eyes locking onto him with the same focused intensity he used in boardrooms. Arya, he recognized her from the giraffe, tilted her head. You're the man from the mall. I am, Minjai said. His voice came out steadier than he expected. Zara, the one on the left, stood up. Are you Mommy's friend? Yes. What's your name? Naomi asked, the shy one, still half hidden behind a coloring book. Minjai glanced at Amara. She nodded slightly. My name is Minjai, he said, but you can call me, whatever you want. Arya giggled. That's a funny name. It's Korean, he explained. Mommy says we're half Korean, Zara announced proudly. Minjai's chest tightened. You are. Do you know Korea? Arya asked. I was born there. Is it pretty? Very pretty. Naomi finally lowered the coloring book. Do you like coloring? Such a simple question, but loaded with the weight of acceptance. I haven't colored in a long time, Minjai admitted. That's sad, Naomi said seriously. Coloring makes everything better. Amara smiled slightly. Naomi's an artist. Like you, Minjai said, looking at Amara. She blinked, surprise flickering across her face. You remember. I remember everything. The words hung in the air between them, heavier than they should have been, carrying 4 years of unspoken history. Arya stood up, walked over to Minjai, and grabbed his hand. Her fingers were so small, so warm. Come sit with us, she said, tugging him toward the carpet. We're coloring a garden. Minjai looked at Amara. She nodded again, though her expression had shifted into something cautious. He let Arya lead him to the floor, folding his long frame into a cross-legged position that felt absurd and perfect all at once. Zara handed him a crayon. Green. You can do the grass, she instructed. Okay. And just like that, Kang Minjai, feared leader, ghost in a suit, man who'd built kingdoms on silence, sat on a worn carpet in a small Brooklyn apartment and colored grass with his daughters. An hour passed. Then 2. Minjai learned that Arya was the bold one, asking questions without hesitation, declaring opinions like facts. Zara was the organized one, making sure everyone had equal crayons, equal space, equal turns. And Naomi was the observer, quiet but deeply thoughtful, watching him with those mirror image eyes like she could see through the careful walls he'd built. Amara stayed nearby, working at the small kitchen table on her laptop, glancing up every few minutes to monitor the situation. Why are your hands so big? Arya asked at one point, holding her tiny palm against his. Because I'm an adult. Will our hands get that big? Probably not quite that big, Amara interjected gently. But they'll grow. I want big hands, Zara declared, so I can hold more crayons. Naomi, who'd been silent for a while, suddenly spoke up. Do you have a family? The question landed like a stone in still water. Minjae set down the blue crayon he'd been using for the sky. What do you mean? Like, a mommy and daddy and sisters and brothers? I have a sister, he said carefully. Her name is Ji-eun. She lives far away. Do you have a mommy and daddy? Amara tensed but didn't interrupt. I did, Minjae said, but they're not here anymore. Did they go to heaven? Naomi asked. Yes. Do you miss them? Such an innocent question, and the answer was so complicated. Every day, he said. And it was true. He missed the father who'd taught him chess and strategy. Missed the mother who'd sung lullabies in Korean before the world turned dark. Missed the version of himself who believed family could exist without danger. It's okay to miss people, Naomi said solemnly. Mommy says missing people means you loved them. Minjae looked at Amara. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read, something between compassion and caution. Your mommy is very smart, he said. We know, all three girls said in unison. And despite everything, the weight of the past, the uncertainty of the future, the fear that he'd ruin this fragile moment, Minjae smiled. A real smile, the kind he hadn't felt in 4 years. At noon, Amara stood up. Okay, girls, time to clean up. We need to get ready for lunch. A chorus of protest rose, but Amara handled it with practiced efficiency, redirecting, encouraging, setting boundaries without raising her voice. Minjae watched her work, fascinated by the quiet authority she wielded. This was her empire, small but powerful, and she ruled it with grace. Can Minjae eat lunch with us? Arya asked. He probably has other things to do. I don't, Minjae said quickly. Then, more carefully, if it's okay with your mom. 3 pairs of eyes turned to Amara. She sighed. Fine, but wash your hands first. The girls scattered toward the bathroom, arguing about who got to use soap first. Amara walked over to where Minjae still sat on the floor. You're good with them, she said quietly. I'm trying. I can tell. She extended a hand to help him up. He took it. Her palm was warm, familiar in a way that made his chest ache. When he stood, they were close, closer than they'd been since the mall. Close enough that he could smell the faint scent of her shampoo, something floral and clean. Thank you, he said, for this. Don't thank me yet. This is just one morning. I know. And it doesn't erase anything. I know that too. She pulled her hand away slowly. They like you. That scares me. Good, Amara said. It should, because if you disappoint them, I won't. You don't know that. No, he agreed. But I'm going to try like hell not to. They stood there, suspended in the moment, surrounded by the sound of running water and children's laughter from the bathroom. Why did you really leave? Amara asked suddenly. And don't give me the protecting you excuse. I want the truth. Minjae looked down at his hands, hands that had done terrible things, hands that had just colored gardens with crayons. Because my father died protecting his family, he said. And I was terrified I'd fail the same way. So you left instead. So I left instead. Amara shook her head. You're an idiot. I know. Your father died protecting his family. You abandoned yours. The words cut deep, true and brutal. I'm trying to fix it, he said. You can't fix it, Minjae. You can only move forward. Then let me move forward. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded toward the kitchen. Lunch is grilled cheese and tomato soup. Nothing fancy. Sounds perfect. And it was. They ate together, him, Amara, and 3 little girls who didn't know they were sitting with a man who commanded fear across the city. They just knew him as the quiet guy who was okay at coloring and made their mother smile when she thought no one was looking. After lunch, As Min-jae was putting on his jacket to leave, Naomi approached him. "Will you come back?" she asked. His heart stopped. "Do you want me to?" She nodded. "You make Mommy less sad." Min-jae glanced at Amara, who looked away quickly. "Then I'll come back," he promised. "When?" "Whenever your mom says it's okay," Naomi smiled. Then, without warning, threw her small arms around his legs in a hug that nearly broke him. Arya and Zara joined immediately, creating a three-person embrace that felt like the closest thing to redemption he'd ever known. Over their heads, Min-jae met Amara's eyes. She was crying. Silent tears sliding down her cheeks, but she wasn't wiping them away. He mouthed, "I'm sorry." She mouthed back, "I know." And for the first time in 4 years, Kang Min-jae allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, some broken things could be rebuilt. Not fixed, but rebuilt. Into something new. A quick announcement before we begin. Channel members get access to exclusive videos, weekly content, and early access to videos before they go live on the channel. To join, just click Join here on YouTube. And if you'd like to support the growth of the channel, the available support options are listed in the description. Let's start. 3 weeks became 3 months. Min-jae visited every Sunday at 10 a.m. No bodyguards, no phone calls during visits. Just him, showing up, learning how to be present in a life he'd never thought he deserved. He learned that Arya could negotiate like a seasoned diplomat, always securing an extra 10 minutes before bedtime. That Zara arranged her toys by color and size, a tiny architect building order from chaos. That Naomi drew pictures of things she felt but couldn't say, storms and sunshine existing on the same page. He learned that Amara took her coffee black, worked late into the night after the girls slept, and still wore the small silver bracelet he'd given her on their first anniversary, though she claimed it was just habit. He learned that being a father wasn't about grand gestures or strategic planning. It was about showing up, again and again. Even when you didn't know what to say, especially then. But outside the walls of apartment 4C, his other world continued. Territory disputes, revenue collection, meetings where silence carried more weight than words. He compartmentalized with surgical precision. Min-jae the father on Sundays, Kang Min-jae the rest of the week. Until the day those worlds collided. It was a Tuesday when Daewon entered his office without knocking. That alone told Min-jae something was wrong. "Sir," Daewon said, closing the door behind him. "We have a problem." Min-jae looked up from the contracts spread across his desk. "Define problem." "Victor Kozlov knows about the girls." The words hit like ice water. Victor Kozlov, Russian enforcer, ambitious, brutal, currently making moves into territories Min-jae had held for 5 years. They'd been circling each other for months. Threats disguised as business proposals, tension building like pressure behind a dam. "How?" Min-jae asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Someone talked. We're tracking the leak now." "And what does Victor know exactly?" Daewon's jaw tightened. Names, ages, address. Min-jae stood slowly. The city stretched out behind him through the windows. Millions of lights that suddenly felt like a million vulnerabilities. "Get a protection detail on Amara's building. Discreet." "She doesn't know they're there." "Already done, sir. But there's more." Of course there was. "Victor sent a message. He wants a meeting. Says if you don't come, he'll send his regards to apartment 4C. Min-jae's hands curled into fists on the desk. "When?" "Tonight. Pier 76. Midnight. A warehouse. Isolated. Every tactical disadvantage." Which meant Victor wanted blood, not conversation. "Tell the team to prepare," Min-jae said. "Full defensive protocol." "Sir?" Daewon hesitated. "Maybe we should move them, the woman and the girls, somewhere secure until this is resolved." Min-jae considered it, then shook his head. "Amara would never agree. And forcing her would break the only trust I've managed to build. With respect, trust doesn't matter if they're dead. Trust is the only thing that matters. Daewon nodded slowly. Then we end this tonight. We end this tonight, Minjae agreed. He texted Amara at 6 p.m. Can't make it Sunday. Something came up. She replied an hour later. Everything okay? He stared at the message. Wanted to tell her everything. That men who dealt in violence and territory knew where she lived, knew her daughter's names, knew exactly how to hurt him. Instead, he wrote, yes. Just work. Another lie. Another brick in the wall he'd rebuilt between them. But this time, he told himself, the lie was protection. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. The girls will miss you. His chest tightened. I'll make it up to them. You better. Then, Minjae? Yes? Be careful. He stared at those 2 words for a long time. Always, he lied. Pier 76 at midnight was exactly what Minjae expected. Abandoned warehouses, broken glass catching moonlight, the East River lapping against rotted wood. He arrived with Daewon and 4 others, all armed, all ready. Victor was already there, flanked by 6 of his own men. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that advertised violence as a lifestyle choice. Kang, Victor said, his accent thick, amused. You came. You threatened my family. Family? Victor laughed. You mean the woman you divorced and the bastards you abandoned? Minjae's jaw clenched, but he didn't rise to the bait. What do you want, Victor? What everyone wants. Respect, territory, power. He lit a cigarette, smoke curling into the cold air. You've had a good run, Kang. But times change. Empires fall. Not mine. No? Victor took a long drag. I could have your little girls picked up tomorrow. Pretty things. Same eyes as you, I hear. Shame what could happen to pretty things in this world. The threat was clear, visceral, designed to provoke. And it worked. Minjae moved before thought, closing the distance between them in 3 strides, grabbing Victor by the collar, slamming him against the warehouse wall. Touch them, Minjae said, his voice low and lethal, and I will erase every trace of you from this city. Your men, your territory, your name, everything. Victor smiled through the pressure on his throat. There he is, the real Kang Minjae. I was wondering when the mask would crack. Daewon appeared at Minjae's shoulder. Sir, not worth it. Minjae held Victor's gaze for another heartbeat, then released him. Victor straightened his jacket, still smiling. Here's the deal. You give me the Brooklyn waterfront operations, all of it, and I pretend I never heard about apartment 4C. And if I refuse, then I visit your family, have a conversation. Maybe they'll be more reasonable than you. Every muscle in Minjae's body screamed to end this, to eliminate the threat permanently. But violence here, now, would start a war. And wars meant collateral damage, meant Amara and the girls caught in crossfire. You have 48 hours, Victor said. After that, I stop asking nicely. He walked away, his men following, leaving Minjae standing in the shadows of the pier with a choice that felt like drowning. Minjae didn't go home that night. He drove to Brooklyn, parked across the street from Amara's building, and watched the dark windows on the 4th floor. His protection team was in place. 2 in a van half a block down, 1 in the building across the street, 1 posing as a night jogger. They were good, professional, but good wasn't enough against someone like Victor. His phone buzzed. Daewon. What's the call? Minjae typed, I need options. Option 1, give him Brooklyn. We rebuild elsewhere. Option 2, we move the family. Secured location. Round-the-clock protection. Option 3, a long pause. Then, we eliminate the threat. Minjae stared at the words. Option 3 meant war, meant bodies, meant becoming exactly what he'd tried to protect Amara from 4 years ago. But it also meant his daughters could sleep safely. Meant Amara didn't have to look over her shoulder. meant the life he was trying to build wouldn't be held hostage by men like Viktor Kozlov. He was still staring at the phone when the light in Amara's apartment turned on. 4th floor, living room window. He checked his watch. 2:47 a.m. Then his phone rang. Amara's name on the screen. He answered. "Is everything okay?" "I could ask you the same thing." Her voice was quiet, careful. "There's a man across the street sitting in a car. Has been for 3 hours. Want to tell me why?" Of course she'd noticed. "It's nothing," he said. "Minjai, don't lie to me. Not about this." He closed his eyes. "I'm handling something. It's complicated." "Does it involve me and the girls?" Silence. "Minjai, does it involve us?" "Potentially." He heard her inhale sharply. "Are we in danger?" "Not if I handle this correctly." "That's not an answer." "Amara, come upstairs." "What?" "You heard me. Come upstairs. If we're having this conversation, we're having it face to face." The line went dead. Minjay sat there for a moment, then got out of the car and crossed the street. She was waiting at the door when he reached the 4th floor, wearing sweatpants and an oversized Columbia hoodie, hair tied back, eyes sharp despite the hour. "Inside," she said. He followed her into the apartment. Everything was dark except a small lamp in the corner. Amara turned to face him, arms crossed. "Talk." So he did. He told her about Viktor, about the threats, about the protection team, about the choice he was facing. When he finished, Amara was silent for a long time. "So let me get this straight," she said finally. "Because you're involved in whatever you're involved in. Some Russian gangster knows where we live and is threatening my children. Our children. Don't." Her voice cracked. "Don't you dare claim them now as leverage in your guilt. That's not. This is exactly what I was afraid of." She kept her voice low, conscious of the girls sleeping in the next room, but fury radiated from every word. "This is why I didn't tell you I was pregnant. Because your world, it destroys everything it touches. I'm fixing it." "By doing what? Giving up your territory? Starting a war? Moving us like we're chess pieces?" "By protecting you." "I don't need your protection, Minjai. I need you to not bring danger to my door in the first place." The words hung between them, brutal and true. "You're right," he said quietly. She blinked. "What?" "You're right. This is my fault. All of it. And I'm sorry." Amara's anger wavered, replaced by something that looked like exhaustion. "Sorry doesn't fix this." "I know." She walked to the window, stared out at the street below. "What are you going to do?" "Whatever it takes to keep you safe. Even if it means going back to being the person you were? The person who walked away?" Minjai stepped closer. "I'm not walking away. Not this time." "Then what?" He stood beside her at the window. "I'm ending this. Permanently." Amara turned to look at him, and in her eyes he saw fear. Not for herself, for him. "Don't do anything stupid," she said. "Define stupid. Don't die trying to fix something that might not be fixable." "They're worth it," he said. "You're all worth it." Amara's expression softened slightly. "They ask about you, you know, during the week. When is Minjai coming? Why can't he visit more? Does he like us?" His throat tightened. "What do you tell them?" "I tell them you're busy, that you care about them very much, that sometimes grown-ups have complicated lives." "Do they believe you?" "For now." She paused. "But, Minjai, if you're going to be in their lives, you have to actually be in their lives, not just Sundays, not just when it's convenient, and definitely not if it means they'll lose you to violence." "I understand." "Do you?" "Because I lost you once already. I survived. But them?" She glanced toward the bedroom where 3 little girls slept, unaware of the storm gathering around them. "They're just starting to trust you. If something happens, nothing will happen. You can't promise that. No, he agreed, but I can try. Amara studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out and took his hand. Then try, she said softly. But don't try alone. What do you mean? I mean, for once in your life, let someone help you carry the weight. Min-jae looked down at their joined hands. 4 years ago, he'd let go, walked away, convinced himself that solitude was safety. But standing here now, feeling the warmth of her palm against his, he understood what he'd actually been. Not safe. Just alone. Okay, he whispered. Okay? I'll try not to do this alone. Amara squeezed his hand once, then released it. Go, she said. Handle whatever you need to handle, but Min-jae? Yes? Come back. They need you. She didn't say I need you, but he heard it anyway. Min-jae didn't sleep. He returned to the penthouse, gathered his core team, and laid out the situation with clinical precision. Victor wants war, he said, standing at the head of the conference table. But war is expensive, messy, and it puts innocent people at risk. Daewon leaned forward. So what's the alternative? We give him what he wants. Silence crashed through the room. Sir, one of the lieutenants said carefully, giving up Brooklyn waterfront means losing 20% of our revenue. I know. It also makes us look weak. Others will test boundaries. I know that too. Then why? Because, Min-jae said, his voice cutting through the confusion. I'm not willing to gamble with my daughter's safety to protect territory. The words settled like stones. Daewon was the first to speak. Respectfully, sir, this isn't you. Maybe it should have been. You built this organization on never backing down. If you give Victor Brooklyn, you're not just losing territory. You're losing the fear that keeps others in line. Min-jae met his eyes. Then I'll rebuild it differently. How? I don't know yet, but I know that 4 years ago, I walked away from my family because I was afraid of making them targets. And I was a coward. He looked around the table. I'm not making the same mistake twice. Another lieutenant spoke up. What if we negotiate? Offer something else? Victor doesn't want something else. He wants to prove he can take from me. So we let him? We let him think he's won, Min-jae said slowly. And then we rebuild smarter, quieter, without making my family visible targets. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was the only one that didn't end with Amara and the girls caught in crossfire. I need 48 hours, Min-jae said. Move assets out of Brooklyn. Secure alternate revenue streams. Make this look like a strategic retreat, not a surrender. And then? And then we make sure Victor understands that mercy isn't weakness. The next day, Min-jae picked up the girls from preschool. He'd asked Amara that morning, a text that said simply, "Can I help today?" Her response, "They get out at 3. Don't be late." He arrived at 2:55, standing outside the small building with a handful of other parents and caregivers. Most of them looked at him with vague curiosity. Tall Korean man in expensive but understated clothes, clearly out of place in the world of juice boxes and permission slips. The doors opened. Children spilled out like a flood of noise and color. And then he saw them. Arya spotted him first. Her eyes went wide, then she was running. Full speed, backpack bouncing, nearly tripping over her own feet. Min-jae! She crashed into his legs with the force of a tiny meteorite. Zara and Naomi were right behind her, creating a 3-person embrace that knocked the breath from his lungs in the best possible way. What are you doing here? Arya demanded, looking up with those mirror image eyes. Your mom said I could pick you up. Where is Mommy? Naomi asked. Working. I'm taking you to the park. 3 gasps of delight. Can we get ice cream? Zara asked. If you eat actual food first. Deal! They walked to the nearby park hand in hand, Arya on his left, Naomi on his right, Zara alternating between holding his hand and running ahead to announce their progress. Minjae felt eyes on him, other parents, security cameras, the weight of a world that always watched. But for the first time in his life, he didn't care. Let them watch. Let them see Kang Minjae, the feared ghost of the city's underworld, being dragged toward a playground by 3 little girls who didn't know fear. At the park, he learned that pushing someone on a swing required specific timing. That underdog was apparently the highest honor a swing pusher could achieve. That sandcastles needed moats, and moats needed water, and water required negotiation with other children at the water fountain. He learned that Arya could climb higher than her sisters and wasn't afraid to prove it. That Zara organized games with the efficiency of a general. That Naomi made friends by sharing her snacks and asking gentle questions. He learned that being a father meant vigilance, scanning the park for threats while simultaneously monitoring whose turn it was on the slide. And he learned that the two didn't have to be mutually exclusive. His protection detail was there. He'd spotted them within 30 seconds. One man reading a newspaper on a bench, woman with a stroller near the west entrance, another doing Tai Chi by the trees. They were watching for Victor's people. But Minjae was watching his daughters play. "You're good at this," a voice said beside him. He turned. A woman, maybe 40, with kind eyes and paint-stained jeans. "At what?" he asked. "Being present. A lot of parents are here physically, but on their phones mentally. You're actually watching them." Minjae glanced back at the girls. Naomi was showing another child her drawing. Arya was attempting to teach Zara a handstand. The pure, uncomplicated chaos of childhood. "I have a lot of time to make up for," he said. The woman smiled. "Don't we all?" She walked away, and Minjae was left standing there, watching 3 pieces of his heart run around in yellow jackets and light-up sneakers. His phone buzzed. Day 1. Brooklyn transfer complete. Victor's people taking possession now. Minjae stared at the message. 4 years of territory building. Gone. Handed over to a man who'd threatened his family. He should have felt rage, humiliation, the sting of defeat. Instead, watching Arya successfully complete her handstand while her sisters cheered, he felt something else entirely. Relief. He typed back, "Good, keep monitoring. Let me know if he makes any moves." Then he put the phone away and walked over to where his daughters were celebrating. "Did you see?" Arya asked breathlessly. "I saw. That was incredible. Can you do a handstand?" "Not anymore." "Why not?" "I'm old." All 3 girls dissolved into giggles. "You're not old," Naomi said seriously. "Old people have white hair." "Give me time." More giggles. And in that moment, surrounded by laughter and playground noise and the simple joy of being someone's whole world, Minjae understood something fundamental. He'd spent 15 years building an empire of fear and silence. But this, 3 little girls who thought he hung the moon, who didn't care about territory or power or reputation, this was the only empire that mattered, and he'd protect it with everything he had. That evening, he returned them to Amara's apartment. She opened the door, and he saw the question in her eyes before she spoke it. "How did it go?" "We had ice cream," Arya announced. "After actual food," Minjae added quickly. Amara's lips twitched. "Good." The girls disappeared into their room to show their stuffed animals the amazing leaf collection they'd gathered. Amara stepped into the hallway, closing the door partway behind her. "You gave him Brooklyn," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. "How did you—" "I'm not stupid, Minjae. You pick up my daughters from school on a Tuesday afternoon. You're clearly in a good mood despite everything, and you're not radiating the kind of tension you had last night." She crossed her arms. "You gave him what he wanted. It was the right call." "Was it?" "Amara, I'm not judging," she interrupted. "I'm asking. Was giving up something you built really the right call?" Minjae met her eyes. "Yes. Why?" Because they're worth more than territory. Something shifted in Amara's expression. You really mean that? I do. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? You chose them over your empire. That's… She paused, searching for words. That's not the man I divorced. Good, because he was an idiot. Amara laughed, soft, unexpected, genuine. He really was, she agreed. They stood there in the hallway, close enough to touch but not touching, the sound of the girls' voices drifting through the door. Min-jae? Yeah? Thank you. For today. For all of it. You don't have to thank me. I do. Because you didn't have to show up. But you did. And you keep showing up. I'm going to keep showing up, he promised. Amara looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Something between hope and fear. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of forgiveness. I know, she said softly. Then she turned and went back inside, leaving him in the hallway with the warmth of her words and the weight of a choice that felt, for once, absolutely right. 6 months later, Min-jae stood in the kitchen of a house he'd bought 3 weeks ago. 4 bedrooms, backyard with actual grass, quiet street in a neighborhood where children rode bikes and people knew their neighbors' names. A house, not a penthouse, not a fortress, a home. He was attempting pancakes. You're burning them, Arya observed from her perch on the counter. I'm aware. Why don't you flip them? I'm waiting for the bubbles. What bubbles? The recipe says to wait for bubbles. There are bubbles. Those are the wrong kind of bubbles. Arya giggled. How can bubbles be wrong? I don't know, but these ones are. Zara wandered in, carrying a book about dinosaurs. Mommy makes better pancakes. Everyone makes better pancakes than me, Min-jae admitted. Then why are you making them? Naomi asked, appearing in the doorway. Because your mom is sleeping, and it's Sunday. And Sundays mean pancakes. Even bad pancakes? Especially bad pancakes. The girls dissolved into giggles as smoke started rising from the pan. Min-jae quickly flipped the pancake. It was black on one side, raw on the other. Okay, he said, surveying the disaster. New plan. Who wants cereal? 3 hands shot up. Cereal it is. He was pouring milk when Amara appeared, wearing one of his old t-shirts and sweatpants, hair messy from sleep, looking more beautiful than anyone had a right to look before 9 a.m. I thought I smelled something burning, she said. That was me attempting breakfast. I appreciate the attempt. I failed spectacularly. I appreciate that too. She walked over, kissed the top of Arya's head, then Zara's, then Naomi's. The girls immediately started talking over each other, explaining the pancake disaster with the dramatic flair of seasoned storytellers. Amara caught Min-jae's eye over their heads and smiled. That smile still destroyed him. Every single time. 6 months ago, he'd given Victor Brooklyn, watched his empire shrink, accepted the whispers that Kang Min-jae was going soft, getting weak, losing his edge. And he'd never been happier. Because he'd gained something infinitely more valuable. This. Morning chaos. Burned pancakes. 3 little girls who called him by name and expected him to know the difference between a T-Rex and an Allosaurus. A woman who'd forgiven him piece by piece, day by day, until forgiveness became something that looked remarkably like love. I have a meeting at 11, Amara said, pouring herself coffee. Client wants to discuss a rebrand. I'll watch the girls. You sure? It might run long. I'm sure. She studied him for a moment. You know you don't have to do this, right? The whole domestic thing. You could hire help. I don't want help. I want this. Even the chaos? Especially the chaos. Amara shook her head, smiling. You're a strange man, Kang Min-jae. You're just figuring that out? She walked over, stood on her tiptoes, and kissed him. Soft. Sweet. The kind of kiss that tasted like second chances and Sunday mornings. The girls made exaggerated gagging noises. Gross, Arya declared. So gross, Zara agreed. Adults are weird, Naomi concluded. Minjae and Amara broke apart, laughing. Eat your cereal, Amara told them. You're not the boss of breakfast, Arya said. I'm the boss of everything. Minjae is the boss of pancakes. Terrible pancakes, Minjae corrected. The worst pancakes, Amara agreed, grinning. And somehow, in the middle of this beautiful, chaotic, imperfect morning, Minjae felt something he'd spent 31 years searching for. Peace. Later that afternoon, after Amara left for her meeting, Minjae took the girls to the backyard. They'd discovered that the previous owners had left behind a small garden bed, overgrown but salvageable. The girls had decided, with the absolute certainty of 4-year-olds, that they needed to grow flowers. What kind of flowers? Minjae had asked. All of them, Arya said. That's not specific. All of them. So here they were, kneeling in dirt, armed with small shovels and seed packets from the hardware store. How deep do we dig? Zara asked. Minjae consulted the packet. Says here about 2 inches. How much is 2 inches? He held up his fingers to demonstrate. That's not very deep, Naomi observed. Seeds are small. They don't need much. Do you think they'll grow? Arya asked. If we take care of them. What if we forget? Then we'll remember. What if we're bad at it? Minjae looked at his daughter, this fierce, bright, occasionally impossible little person who asked questions that cut straight to the heart of things. Then we'll get better, he said. That's what you do when something matters. You keep trying. Arya seemed satisfied with this answer. She returned her attention to digging, tongue poking out in concentration. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the afternoon sun warm on their backs, distant sounds of neighborhood life drifting over the fence. Minjae? Naomi said suddenly. Yeah? Are you going to stay? He set down his shovel. What do you mean? Buy some kids at school, their dads leave, and don't come back. She was still looking at the dirt, not at him. Are you going to leave? The question hit harder than any threat Victor had ever made. Minjae moved closer, kneeling beside her. Naomi, look at me. She did. Those eyes, his eyes, filled with worry too big for a 4-year-old to carry. I'm not going anywhere, he said firmly. I'm staying, right here, with you and your sisters and your mom, for as long as you'll have me. Promise? I promise. Even when we're annoying? Especially when you're annoying. A small smile. We're pretty annoying. The most annoying, he agreed solemnly. Naomi threw her arms around his neck, getting dirt all over his shirt. He didn't care. Arya and Zara joined the hug without needing an invitation, creating a tangle of small limbs and laughter, and the kind of love that didn't require explanations. When they finally pulled apart, Arya had dirt on her face. You have dirt on your face, Minjae said. So do you. He wiped his cheek. His hand came away muddy. We're all dirty, Zara announced happily. Mommy's going to be mad, Naomi said. Mommy's going to laugh, Minjae corrected. And she did. When Amara came home 2 hours later and found all 4 of them covered in dirt, sitting in the grass, eating popsicles, she stopped in the doorway of the back door and just laughed. Real laughter. The kind that lit up her whole face. I was gone for 3 hours, she said. 3 hours is a long time, Minjae replied. Clearly. She walked over, surveyed the garden bed, now planted, watered, marked with handwritten signs declaring Arya's flowers, and Zara's flowers, and Naomi's flowers. You actually planted them. We did. Think they'll grow? If we take care of them? Amara looked at him, really looked. And in her eyes he saw everything they'd been through, The marriage, the divorce, the years apart, the slow rebuilding. "You've changed," she said quietly. "Is that bad?" "No." She reached out, brushed dirt off his shoulder. "It's good. Really good. Good enough to maybe try this, officially?" Her hand stilled. "Try what?" "This. Us. Not as ex-husband and baby father, but as partners in all of it." Amara's breath caught. "Minjae, I know I don't deserve it. I know I walked away. I know I have 15 years of a life you don't fully understand. But I'm asking anyway." He took her hand. "Give me another chance. A real one." The girls had gone quiet, sensing the weight of the moment even if they didn't understand it. Amara looked at their joined hands, then at the girls, then back at him. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too." "What if you leave again?" "I won't. You don't know that." "No," he agreed. "But I'm promising anyway, because you and these girls, you're everything. And I'm never stupid enough to walk away from everything twice." A tear slid down Amara's cheek. "You're going to have to work for this," she said. "It's not just about showing up on Sundays anymore." "I know." "You're going to have to let me in, really in, no more walls." "I know." "And if you hurt them, you'll make me regret every decision I've ever made." "I remember." Amara laughed through her tears. "Damn right I will." "So is that a yes?" She looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, tremulous, hopeful, brave. "It's a yes." The girls erupted in cheers, though Minjae suspected they just liked the energy, not the actual content. He pulled Amara close, kissed her forehead, and felt the last piece of something broken finally click back into place. "I love you," he said. "I should have said it 4 years ago, but I'm saying it now. I love you. I love them. And I'm not going anywhere." "I love you too," Amara whispered, "even though you make terrible pancakes." "Especially because I make terrible pancakes." She laughed against his chest, and he held her there, surrounded by 3 little girls and a garden that might grow, in a backyard that was theirs, in a life he'd never thought he deserved. Kang Min-jae had built an empire of fear and silence. But this small, chaotic, perfectly imperfect family, was the only empire worth keeping. And he would protect it with everything he was, not as a ghost in a suit, but as a father, a partner, a man who'd learned that strength wasn't about walls, it was about letting people in, and staying. Epilogue. 3 years later, the garden had grown. Wildflowers now spilled over the edges of the bed, blues and yellows and purples that the girls watered religiously every Saturday morning. Min-jae stood at the kitchen window, watching 7-year-old Arya teach 6-month-old baby Elijah how to smell flowers. "Gently," she instructed, her voice serious. "You can't eat them." Elijah, sitting in his bouncer, gurgled and immediately tried to eat them anyway. Amara appeared beside Min-jae, sliding an arm around his waist. "She's going to be a great big sister," she said. "They all are." Indeed, Zara was organizing a flower show with elaborate categories, and Naomi was drawing a sign that said, "Welcome to the garden," in careful letters. "You happy?" Amara asked. Min-jae looked at her, his wife of 2 years, mother of his 4 children, the woman who'd given him more chances than he deserved. "Impossibly," he said. She smiled, kissed him, pulled away when Elijah started crying. "Duty calls," she said. "I've got him." Min-jae walked outside, scooped up his son, and was immediately mobbed by 3 daughters who wanted to show him everything. The flowers, the sign, the elaborate ranking system. And standing there, holding his baby son while his daughters talked over each other in joyful chaos, Min-jae understood something he'd spent 35 years learning. Power wasn't about control. Love wasn't about walls. And family? Family was about showing up every single day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. He'd walked away once, but never again, because this beautiful, messy, perfect life was the only empire that mattered. And he was finally home. A quick announcement before we begin. Channel members get access to exclusive videos, weekly content, and early access to videos before they go live on the channel. To join, just click Join here on YouTube. And if you'd like to support the growth of the channel, the available support options are listed in the description. Let's start.